Greetings friends and welcome back to That Garden Place. That's right, today we are episode 3 and we're going to be talking about one of my favorite input plants and how you can go about making it one of yours. In fact, we're talking about English Comfrey, or otherwise referred to as Bocking 14 specifically, and why this plant is so magical in the gardening. It works with all permacultural principles in mind, and it allows for the combination of all 3 permaculture beneficial plant definitions. Let's talk about it. English Comfrey has been around for a very long period of time, and the person that dedicated their life to Bocking 14 specifically wanted something that could be drawing pollinators, which is a type of beneficial plant, wanted to make a dynamic accumulator plant, which would take all the minerals from deep within the soil and repurpose them into a leaf system that could be used as fertilizer around any plant. And third, wanted to have a massive amount of biomass that again would go to fertilize the ground around, well, anywhere in the garden. And in Bocking 14, he got all 3. So with today's video, I will show you how to properly prepare and plant your very own cuttings, which you can get from any distributor around the world. In fact, Bocking 14 is a plant that is only passed through cuttings because the plant itself is sterile. It grows amazing flowers, but it doesn't have any usable or viable seeds, which gives you plenty of pollinators without the messiness of something like a weed. And that's a big deal, especially these days when people are trying to convince you that weeds are also an input crop if you get rid of the seeds. It's an awful lot of work that you can prevent if you have a proper composting setup, which most people don't have space for. This plant eliminates a lot of problems. You have to consider Bocking 14 will drive a taproot 6 feet into the ground. Its roots are essentially there to redistribute nutrition to even the other plants around it in real time. So if you plant this amongst some other things that may need an extra nutritional boost, it's going to feed the biology of your soil. And that's the most important thing in gardening. So let's get around to properly preparing our dormant root cuttings for proper planting. And we are going to take advantage of spring and the fact that this will start growing almost immediately. In fact, we should see top results in just a few weeks, and I'll update this video with another one monitoring the progress, and you'll see exactly how fast this whole thing happens. If you're enjoying today's video, please consider becoming a subscriber if you're not already. If you are, just make sure you hit the like button. That really does help, and ask me any question you want or have any comment down below, because we can talk about those things back and forth in a chat. I love the idea of having a gardening community online because we're going to get opinions and thoughts from all around the globe. And when the growing season is for Comfrey depends on the zone that you're in and where these types of plants are most needed, including here in the desert Southwest. The first step to getting your cuttings prepared is to have a 5-gallon bucket and some fresh spring water or some unchlorinated, unfluoridated water that you can soak your root cuttings in. This is one of those you have to do steps when you're bringing a dormant cutting back to life. Our cuttings come in a bag that's usually very well sealed, and you can see there's not much there, and there doesn't have to be. The cutting will grow roots from several different knobs that are on this particular root. But again, most important thing to do, start by soaking. The soaking procedure can be anywhere from 1 to 4 hours, depending upon the time of year. I would soak it as long as 4 hours, but usually I get away with 1. And in case you're interested and not an endorsement in any way, you can order Bocking 14 English Comfrey roots from CZ Grain, which is the supplier I used this time. Now, with soil temps in the 50s overnight, this means it's about time to plant our root cuttings. While they're soaking, I'm going to prepare the ground, and I've already started to dig in an area that I think will be effective. These plants prefer morning sun, but they don't need sun all day. And if they get just a little bit of sun, they're keenly happy. Now normally you would go about weeding a bed as far as best practices go before you plant something, but the way these roots grow, I have a feeling there's not going to be a lot these weeds will do as far as competition. But I'll move some out of the way anyway. You need about 6 to 8 inches of depth wherever you're going to put your input plant, because that gives it a good start from the very beginning. And avoid the temptation to fertilize in advance. Honestly, you really just need to water these guys and start adding the fertilizer after you see some top growth. The only thing I may consider adding is going to be worm castings, because I just happen to have some from a fresh planting of potatoes that you guys saw last week. And very soon, we'll be harvesting our blackberries. As you can see here, we've gotten through the flowering process. They've been pollinated and we've already got some growth. They're close now. We're gonna have oodles of blackberries, which means I have to put up shade cloth and bird cloth to keep the birds from stealing my harvest. So now that we have our roots well soaked, let's add a little bit of castings on top of the soil we're about to disturb again. So we have a little bit of input nutrition that'll be more readily available than anything else. Not to mention the love of the microorganisms. A couple handfuls per hole should help this all get started. But we've been soaking our rootstock for about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. That's about the limited period of time you can usually get away with. You have to do an hour at least in soaking on a dormant root. Now we're going to plant them in the ground and well, see what happens. A good 6 to 8 inches is required here, so you might want to just take your shovel after you've mixed up your soil, put your foot down on it, tip your shovel up a bit, and drop your cutting in, and then lift up your shovel, cover it over. Now you can step on this, give it a little bit of compression, but I have pretty clay soil, despite the fact that it actually drains pretty decently in this area. That's likely because of the bushes around here that used to exist. We used to have a lot of berry bushes, and you're going to see more of those in future videos. Once again, after you mix up your soil, pull your cutting, tip it up a bit, drop it behind your shovel, pull the shovel out. Just that easy. Most rootstock will plant like that, including grapevines, anything that comes from a rhizome. One more time with our shovel trick. 6 to 8 inches down with the shovel. One drop of our rootstock. Lift it up. Should be good to go. Next step is to water it in a bit. We're going to use the water that we already, well, soaked it in, because why not? And you can go to Walmart, and for under $4 in most big city Walmarts, or even in the rural ones, you can find red wiggler worms in the outdoor section. It's usually in a refrigerator. These were refrigerated, so they're a little more dormant. If you can see those guys there. And if I would kind of push my way through this, might be able to find a couple of worms in here I haven't used yet. Oh, and there's a couple right there. So let's make sure we put this guy in this area. Maybe not quite so drowned. And give him a chance to incorporate there. Maybe a little too much water in that one. Come on, CC, do better. There's some old root right there from a bougainvillea, I think, which is in the area. Created a little mud pie here. Maybe the soil's not as good at draining as I'd hoped for. Well, let's put a worm in here and see what he thinks. And one more little red wiggler, and we should be good. See, you didn't realize, but gardening is all about making mud pies. At least in this terrible soil, another reason to add a worm in here. But that's the whole point. Growing comfrey, the soil doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it's going to help improve the soil over time. And that's a good thing. I don't think we have any more worms, so we're going to throw what they pack the worms in here, because that is going to be some good stuff. And over the course of the next few days, the next 2 weeks, as these start to come to ground, I'll be adding things like coffee grounds once it starts to top out. Things that feed the soil that you don't know about. Used coffee grounds are great. Anyway, that's the simple process of planting a rhizome, and one of the most important ones, I think, in most permaculture gardens. Thank you for joining us again on That Garden Place, and I'm very much looking forward to episode 4, where I'm going to show you how to grow some other things around the garden. And we're going to start getting into defining edges and other elements of permaculture that you can practice nearly everywhere, including at a patio or a small balcony. There are a lot of things that you can do to build your own food forest in a limited space. And regardless, you'll have some fun. Don't forget to ask me any of your questions in the comments section down below. And until next time, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands, well, because you've been gardening. And until next time, see ya on That Garden Place.